welcome back to the Necro Zoo. I am Bones, and in this one, we're finally going to take a look at my Kickstarter Spawn figures that came in. I did get the triple pack, so I'm going to have to switch it up a little bit because I know that there has been tons and tons of unboxings and reviews and stuff on YouTube. So I'm going to do a little bit different stuff. First of all, starting with, of course, it did come in a big giant McFarlane box. And then you had the 3 separate boxes inside. Now, the artist proof one, I will not be opening at all. It's going to stay inside the cardboard. Now, basically, this is just a classic one, except for the fact that it's unpainted, kind of like a prototype looking figure. Everything is gray. And also it did come with one different Necro accessory, which is like a circular where you put it inside of his hands. And I actually really would like to pick up one of those on its own because I like the way it looks, and it is the only thing that is green in that whole box. But if I don't pick it up, that's cool, but I would like to pick one up on its own. I did see one online really quick, and when I clicked on it, it was already sold. So I think it was like $15, which I would have paid just to get that little piece. But it's not a deal breaker. But like I say, that one is staying in the box. I'm never going to open it until I decide, what to do with it. Now we do have the classic one. And this one, I will open up, but it's going to stay inside the clamshell. Even though McFarlane did make these where you can open the clamshell and then reclose it, I just really want to keep this one the way it is. Because when you do take the figure out, you do end up clipping like those little plastic ties that hold them in. And I think once you clip those, then you already broke the seal. So even though this one is going to be here in the office, it'll only be like to show like that I have it, but I'm never actually going to take it out. So this one will be here in the office, and every once in a while I'll show it off. But for now, it's just going to stay in the box like that. Now, I did open up the modern version, which is here. And I took everything out. So this is basically just the box. I might end up using it like just as a stand or something, but I don't know. But of course, when you open it up, it has like foam and it keeps everything in there. The classic one does have the McFarlane signature in there. So that's going to, like I said, that one's going to stay in there. But building up to this, I have been looking at a lot of stuff to know what I wanted to do with these figures. So I decided I will open up the modern one. That's the one I'm going to decide to actually display out of the box and do different things to. This one's an open game, like I could do whatever I want with it. And that's got my gears going of how I eventually was going to display these, because I knew the parts that were coming. So we'll take a look at that stuff and take a look at the things that I did to change it up and the customizations I did. And we'll talk about that. So starting off, as usual, he does come with a circular McFarlane stand, but this one does have the Spawn logo on it. And it's useful, but not for this figure. I may end up using it for another one that I'm going to make, that I'm going to customize, but we'll see. Then, of course, in the box, you do get this little like comparison checklist, kind of comparing the old original Spawn figure from the 90s to this one and the differences. And then you do have a certificate of authenticity. So that's cool. I mean, I'll keep that around. You also get with each figure a comic book, even though I think the colors of the covers change. They're basically all the same inside. You got your Spawn inside. I was surprised to see that they're pretty much black and white, but it does have a couple of color spreads on there. I haven't had a chance to really read it, but pretty cool images, pretty classic images of Spawn in there. So this will be out here in the office, you know, just sitting around. Now he did come with alternate hands. You have two kind of like they look like kind of like trigger hands, but in the Spawn rendition. Pretty cool. And then two ripping hands with like holes where I guess you could put the weapons and the accessories and stuff. And then he does come with his like kind of like gnarled clawed hands, which are the ones I prefer. Now, one thing cool I did like about these hands is that he didn't go with the regular ball joint that he usually does in the multiverse line. He kind of went with this peg like on a swivel, but you can move it and then you can turn it in the hole. So this is kind of a more stylistically clean hand, and I wish he would do these more, but I'm not sure if he would transition this to the DC Multiverse line. He might only do these like on his own figures, but pretty cool. Then of course he does come with this big old gun, kind of like a big machine gun hybrid of different things. You got a rocket launcher on top and then a grenade launcher on bottom, kind of some sort of like AR-15 in the middle there. Pretty cool. Spawn's always been known for his weapons and his arsenal, so I do have an idea of what I'm going to do with this one. Nice paint job on this as well. He does come with the mace or club. Has like a hook and then a bunch of rusty nails coming out of it. Pretty cool paint job on this. Pretty cool detail. You could add a little bit more stuff, which I eventually might do. Now this is reminiscent of the old school club that came with the original Spawn figure, where it just had like a spike through it. Was never really a big fan of this weapon. That's why he's on this shoelace head Spawn. But it's pretty cool. A pretty cool throwback. Now speaking of shoelace head, this is the old original variant shoelace head. And of course this figure did come with the shoelace head, and one of the big gripes was that it's like on a fixed neck, so you can't really articulate it but a little bit. I mean, as soon as you turn it too much, you could start seeing the gaps in the neck and it breaks up the sculpt. So I'm not a big fan of this head. In fact, that's one of the major things that like irked me when I saw all the stuff people were getting, was the fact that I would really much prefer like a regular Spawn masked head, and then I was kind of let down when I saw that it only comes with the classic version. It doesn't come with the modern version. So that kind of got me a little bit, you know. That's really what I wanted to do, was display him with the Spawn mask. And this is all of this is a throwback to the original classic. What was it, like 93, 95 Spawn? Surprisingly enough, this guy also sits on his cape. Like if you have trouble standing him, he just like sits right on his cape. So that's kind of funny the way this figure came out. Now we still have a Necroblast, which is my favorite of these accessories. This is the one I like. This is the one I'm going to use on my display Spawn. And then you have this little knife. Now, I didn't really like this knife as well when I would see people showing it off. The reason being is that I kind of think it kind of like doesn't fit with the rest of the stuff. Like it just doesn't. It's so like basic and it has no detail at all. It's just like a regular little blade. Kind of looks like the blades that came with the McFarlane designed Batman, just like in pure neon green plastic. Kind of looks like candy. It sure doesn't taste like lime. So you know what I really wanted to do with this is I really want to display this blade. Since I don't think it fits with the figure, I'm actually going to use this blade on my old McFarlane original figure. I think it fits him more. I don't know. I just think it looks better, so I'm gonna display him with that blade. So he'll stay like that. Now, of course, we do have the McFarlane Mortal Kombat Spawn, which a lot of people really liked, especially the articulation. And that is one thing that I had already planned from way before, is that I know the figure came with an Al Simmons regular normal head with the necro eyes. And I really like the sculpt of that head. I mean, it's awesome. I just don't really want to display it on this figure. So that got me to thinking, and eventually I ordered myself a Mortal Kombat Spawn, but with the mace, which is the cheapest version. I think I only paid $17 for them, loose. And then I got to thinking, I want to display it on the Mortal Kombat body because it just fits a little bit better. Now, one of the big obstacles I had is that the pegs for the heads were completely different, so I had to switch them out. And then the next thing was that it was so short, the peg, that when you put the head on, the Al Simmons head, it looked like really stuck down into his neck, and it was just really unappealing. So I knew I had to extend the peg to raise up the head so that it wouldn't fit right. So what I ended up doing was getting that peg, I split it right down the middle, I drilled a hole on each side, and then I got these little sticks of plastic that I use that are like really hard plastic. They will not break, they're solid, and surprisingly they have a drill bit that just makes the perfect hole, and these little pegs that I use slide right in there. So I put a little dab of glue, I put one of the pieces of peg on each side, and that did extend the peg a little bit taller to where you put the head and it sits right on there. Now I did test this, because if you sit the head on and it doesn't hit the neck, that means that you still have to push the head down and then it will sit on the neck, and it did come out perfectly. So that way I do not lose any articulation. In fact, it's really tight, moves really smoothly, and the Al Simmons head just fits perfectly on this Mortal Kombat Spawn. And then I decided that he will be using this gun that came with the Kickstarter Spawn. And then I did slice his trigger finger so that the trigger finger fits right inside the trigger of that gun, and it just looks awesome. It just fits perfectly inside there. The trigger finger is in the trigger, and this is how I decided to display my Al Simmons head on this Mortal Kombat body. Pretty cool. Like I said, probably will end up using the stand just for show, just to showcase it. And there you go. That's how I'm going to have my Al Simmons. Somewhere here in the office, he will be displayed proudly. Now, let's move on to the modern Kickstarter Spawn. There's a lot of things people didn't like. There's some things I didn't like, but let's go ahead and take a look at them. Now, starting off with the head, of course, this is the design of the shoelace head. If you did not know, this is where in Spawn versus Batman, Spawn took a batarang right down the middle of his face, and for some reason it would not heal like his body usually does. So he didn't have time to let it heal, so they put a shoelace to hold his skull together, which was pretty cool. And that also ties in Batman into the Spawn mythos, which is pretty awesome. Now, like I said before, you can't really articulate the head that much since it is like a solid piece, but it looks pretty cool. I mean, the detail on it is awesome. I could see where everybody loves this head. It's pretty cool. It's just not the way I would like to display him. Now, moving down, he does have some pretty cool chains on his cape skulls that he has right here. And then moving down, he has some awesome scope work on the torso. The Malboja symbol is raised, which is awesome. And you can actually articulate him really good. He does twist and he does rock side to side. And he actually does lean back, and they actually sculpted the bottom of the emblem on his chest all the way down. So if you were to lean him back, you still have more of the design under there, which was a nice detail. Now, going into the shoulders, the arms, he does have the butterfly joint, but it's kind of restricted by the shoulders on the cape. And people were mad. He has single jointed elbows, but not too much of a problem for me. And then, like I said before, I love these hands and the way they use that like peg swivel piece instead of the ball joints. It's just way easier to articulate and put where you actually want it. You could get some awesome caricature in the hands. So really loving that. Pretty cool skull emblem on his where his belt should be, and then you got some really big thick chains. You got some 90s pouches on his right thigh. And then actually, if you check it, he does have pretty good thigh swivel. And he does have some cuts in the thigh and in the lower calf, which were not expected on his right leg. Now, of course, on this boot side, he has the big boot. He does have double jointed knees. Now, the foot articulation is pretty sweet as well, because you can move it. It does have ankle rocker. It twists on its own. And then he does have toe articulation on both feet. Pretty cool. Another detail I like is the gauntlet. It has a lot of cool sculpt and spikes on there. Kind of restricts the movement of his hand, but no big deal, because once I get him in a pose, he'll pretty much stay like that. Now, another thing people were commenting on was that the boot is on his left side, when pretty much traditionally it is on his right side. But I did find out that if you look at this figure, it's basically designed on the Stan Lee memorial cover that McFarlane did, and that shows Spawn pretty much in this same iteration, like exactly the way he is, with the gauntlets. No gauntlet on his left forearm, and then the boot on the left foot. So that was kind of a mystery. People were like, why is it like that? But then it was found out that it pretty much follows that design of the Stan Lee memorial cover. So now we know where that came from. Checking him out from the bottom, he does just have a little bit of text on one of his feet. If you lift up the cape, you can actually see that there is a skull on his lower back where the chains connect. And then looking at the cape, I mean, it's not removable, which is like everybody's complaint. Even me, I don't see why they did that. The only thing I could think is that from between McFarlane's instructions and China manufacturing these, there might have been like a little bit of discrepancy where they thought, well, let's glue them on, because McFarlane didn't tell us to, but the cape's like really loose. Maybe that's what happened, but maybe one day we'll find out why they decided to glue them on. But that is one thing I will be doing. This is a beautiful cape. If you see it, it has a whole bunch of paint and different washes, and I love the way it drapes down. Of course, it has the hinges to let you either enclose Spawn, or you could move it up and out to give it some character. But I'm pretty sure I will be removing this cape. Now, what happens when you remove it is that it does have a peg in the back. So once that peg comes out, you could clean up that peg of any glue residue, and then you could just peg it in and out. But the main problem is that underneath the shoulders, it is glued in with actual like little trenches in here, and the plastic goes in there. So you have to lift it up, and if it doesn't pop off with the heat, you will have to cut it. But I'm pretty sure it will pop out and just leave the crevices in there. So then you could fill those in and then sand them up and paint them, so you'll never know that it had those holes in there, which is what I'm planning to do. and then you remove the plastic that is supposed to go in there, like chop it down to where it won't bind up when you put the cape back on. And then now the cape will be removable at your leisure. That is why I opened this Modern Spawn, because all the differences I make and all the customizations I make are final, and this is the one I wanted to do that with. So I will be taking off the cape, but that'll be later on. Now let's go ahead and pop off this shoelace head. And like I said before, one of my main problems with this figure was that I wanted to display him with a regular Spawn mask, which is like the look I prefer. And what I ended up doing was, since I put the Simmons head on this Mortal Kombat body, he didn't need the neck peg that they use. So I ended up taking that neck peg and I painted it with a flat black, and then added some pretty much matte gloss to seal it, so that when I move the head and the neck and stuff, the paint will hold up. And then surprisingly, the Mortal Kombat head fit right on the peg. I didn't have to modify that. It fits perfectly, and that way you do retain articulation in the head once it's on that neck peg. You can move it up, you can move it down, you could turn it, and you could tilt it. Now, the hard part was turning that Mortal Kombat head into the Spawn mask, the like kind of classic looking Spawn mask. And I didn't want to just paint. The one thing that it was missing was like these little points that come down from the, like, around the cheek area down. I didn't want to just paint them on, and you would see that one part was sculpted in, and then this was just painted. So I basically took some little pieces of scrap fodder plastic, and I made two little, like, kind of like spikes, I guess you could say, and I really carefully glued them into position, and then I was able to start painting it. Now the way I painted this is I did use matte white with some glow-in-the-dark green and even a little bit of steel gray, just to get the certain off-white, and just start like flaking it in, blending it in to where you couldn't tell that I actually painted it. And then I did seal it with matte sealer, so to not give it like a too glossy look, and it just came out pretty cool. I'm really happy with it. It did take me a while, that's why this review is kind of late, but I'm really happy with the final product. And like I said before, if you got a Modern Spawn and you want a classic Spawn mask head, you can do what I did and change a Mortal Kombat head into a classic Spawn head. So then this fits right into the peg, and then you have yourself a classic Spawn masked Modern Spawn Kickstarter. Really happy with the way it came out. It looks really good. This is how I will be displaying them in the office. The only difference is that I love these gnarled, like, mystic hands, and I will be putting this Necroblast, but like standing up, in one of his hand, on this hand, the gauntlet hand, like so. And I just really, that's one thing I really like about Spawn, is that not only is he resurrected from the dead, not only is he powered by the necroplasm, but he is also kind of like mystical and spiritual, and he has powers that are pretty dark. And that's one of the things I always liked about Spawn, is his ability to do things that he never thought he could do. And as the more he progresses, he learns to use his powers, and he starts, modifying what he could do. And just a cool thing that I always liked about McFarlane's Spawn. Now, before I go, this is pretty much it. But before I go, I'd just like to say that basically, you've heard it from me before. This is a beautiful piece of shelf candy. You're not going to be getting this guy and climbing him up on the walls and putting him in crazy poses and like Spider-Man, because he's not Spider-Man. He's Spawn. This is the type of figures that McFarlane has always put out, which are like semi-articulated, but just beautiful looking, and the attention to detail and the sculpt and the paint are always there. But these are not figures to be out, playing in the yard with them and or stuff like that. So I didn't expect anything less than what we got. I'm not a big fan of cloth capes, and I'm not a big fan of soft goods. So it doesn't bother me that the cape is how it is. Now, McFarlane did tell us it was going to be like this. He never said there might be a cloth cape or there might be a different cape. He said this is the cape. The only thing that was not right is that he said it would be removable and it wasn't. But like I said, we don't know what happened there. But you can remove it. It just takes some work. But once this guy gets pretty much posed, I'll just put him on the shelf, and that's how he's going to sit. I might end up switching out my beloved Spawn arsenal and putting this one up there. You never know. But I'm pretty pleased with it. Good luck getting one on the secondary market. Now, if McFarlane makes these again and resells them, I know people are not going to be too happy about that, but it is what it is. There is word that they're going to do a second Kickstarter. I'm not so sure it'll break records like this one did, but it will be the medieval Spawn, and I just might have to get on that one as well. Pretty happy with this. Looks cool. I'm happy with the changes I made. I will be working on removing the cape and just making it easily removable and then put it back on. Just for a display piece, cool figure. I wouldn't give it a like 10 out of 10, but it is up there. It is a nice piece of shelf candy. So hope everybody that wants one of these eventually picks one up. Stay safe out there. Keep collecting. Keep customizing. And I will see you on the next one.